Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise and get straight to the core insights of the material you need to master.
Today we are taking a really deep look into how leadership actually begins.
Right. Not with external stuff like titles and metrics, but internally, at the root.
And we have a stack of sources here that really challenge that modern pressure, the pressure to always be indispensable.
Oh, I know the drill. Equating your visibility with your value. Chasing that next title because you think that's where the impact is.
Exactly. And what these sources reveal is that this whole external chase, it often leaves even the most successful, high-achieving leaders feeling, well, fragile on the inside.
That internal fragility is the crisis, isn't it?
It's a central crisis our sources get into, and our mission today is to unpack this fundamental shift they propose.
The shift away from just doing more all the time.
And toward the much deeper work of becoming more. That's the core of what they call transformational leadership.
And you can feel it. Leaders who are, incredibly influential, hitting every goal, but they're anxious or just hollow.
The world is just saturated with that kind of performance anxiety, that ego-driven noise.
So the argument here is that we don't need more leaders driven by external validation.
We need leaders anchored in identity, in
Right.
character, in a purpose that goes way beyond the next quarterly report.
Okay, and the sources give us a framework for that right away.
They do. They define transformational leadership by the alignment of three non-negotiable elements. Think of it like a tripod.
Leadership tripod, I like that.
It's identity, influence, and eternal impact. The idea is, if one of those legs is weak or missing, your whole leadership structure is unstable. It's fleeting.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with that root. Identity.
The sources basically say the old models are broken.
You mean relying on hierarchy, on your technical skills, on just being the boss?
Yeah, that's all fundamentally unstable now. The rules have just, they've shifted. The sources are so clear on this. Trust is the new currency.
And integrity is your leverage.
What's fascinating is the absolute priority they put on identity. And it's not about self-esteem.
What is it about then?
It's about what they call inherent self-worth. The idea that a leader's value isn't earned by what you do.
It's just there.
It's inherent. It's already established. They use these ancient texts to affirm that every person is, intentionally crafted for a purpose.
But wait a minute. For a lot of people listening, especially in these hyper-competitive fields, performance is everything.
Yep.
It's what keeps the lights on.
It determines your job security.
Right. So how do you tell a leader their worth is granted when their paycheck is completely performance-based? Isn't that a little idealistic?
That is the essential friction point, and they tackle it head on.
Okay.
The value of anchoring your identity in something that doesn't change, like a higher power or a firm moral compass, is that it builds resilience.
Resilience against what? Burnout.
Burnout, imposter syndrome, you name it. When your identity is tied to the stock price, your stability is always at risk.
So by seeing your worth as fixed, you can actually handle the ups and downs without a complete personal collapse when you fail.
Exactly. It gives you the emotional capital to take those risks.
This leads right into that idea of moving from insecurity to God-centered confidence.
The story of Gideon is the perfect example they use.
Right. When he's called to lead, he doesn't say, "I'm your guy."
He says,
"My clan is the weakest, and I am the least in my family." That's classic imposter syndrome. We see it all the time.
So what was the shift for him?
His leadership didn't come from some sudden boost in self-confidence. It came from understanding the purpose and the presence that was empowering him.
He had to look beyond himself.
He had to. He shifted his focus from his own weakness to the strength of the mission. It's a core instruction. Identity first, leadership second.
And that's why you see successful leaders today still battling anxiety.
Because their self-perception is totally anchored to their last success or failure, not their inherent worth.
And this established identity, this is the foundation for what the sources call character as capital. Yeah, they cite that ancient proverb, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely." It's a bold claim. Character isn't just a nice to have.
It's a tangible asset.
This is where it gets really actionable. Character is capital because it just massively reduces organizational friction and risk.
And the sources give us some pretty stark examples.
They do. You look at a figure like Daniel.
Hey, bro.
His ethical baseline was so consistent that he was trusted even in hostile governments.
So his integrity was like a shield.
It was a protective mechanism. It gave him access and influence because everyone knew exactly where he stood. No surprises.
And then you contrast that with the Enron executives.
I mean, brilliant guys. Incredibly ambitious. But a total lack of ethical foundation. a deficit of character capital.
So lying just became the way they did business.
And that failure shows us why character is capital. It's both protective, it sustains you through tough times, and it's generative.
What do you mean by generative?
In today's world, it creates what you could call trust economics. You spend less time on compliance, less on oversight. Teams move faster because the leader's word is gold.
Without that bedrock, everything is just brittle.
And it will collapse under pressure every time.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. If identity is the root, how does that change your actual day-to-day strategy?
It changes everything. The sources push us to lead with a vision that transcends outcomes.
So move past the obsession with short-term metrics.
Exactly. This is a huge strategic pivot. Vision in this context isn't just a mission statement on the wall.
It's the why.
It's the enduring why that's rooted in something bigger than the next quarter. The scriptural insight, where there is no vision, the people perish, is less about a business plan.
And more about a clear moral direction.
Yes. Goals are tactical. They're the 12-month projections. Vision is the anchor that stops you from drifting when those goals tempt you to cut corners.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? The sources use Nehemiah rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem.
Right, and his process was incredibly meticulous. He was surveying, delegating, managing all the logistics, a great project manager.
But his success wasn't just about speed.
No, it was measured by his alignment with a fixed plan and the restoration of his community's purpose. That was the real win.
He's a great case study in purpose-driven stakeholder management.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, he faced political enemies, threats, tired workers.
Sanballat and Tobiah.
Those guys. But because his vision was anchored in that non-negotiable purpose, he could resist all the distractions. His clarity let him prioritize the eternal mandate over just, moving faster than the other guy.
And that purpose-driven vision, it flows right into how you use your influence, doesn't it?
It has to. You mentioned authority versus influence earlier.
Yeah, the authority is the title on your business card. Influence is relational. It's earned.
Precisely. Authority can force people to comply, but that's transactional. It's temporary.
Influence creates real commitment.
It creates emotional capital. And you get real transformation through influence, not just by pulling rank.
The sources use the most powerful paradigm for this. Jesus washing the disciples' feet.
I mean, here's someone with ultimate authority, right? And he chooses the most humble, servant-hearted act possible.
He showed that real leadership is exercised through that humility and service.
Making it so clear. Authority might get you in the room, but it's influence that actually transforms lives by earning loyalty, not demanding it.
So if we connect that to the bigger picture, this relational approach is how you multiply your impact.
Yes, through what the sources call relationships as leverage. A leader isn't supposed to be an isolated genius.
A bottleneck.
Or a bottleneck. They're a conduit. Influence flows through them to others. You see it with Moses and Aaron, or Paul and Timothy. It's all about partnership.
And the modern application here is so critical. It's about moving from command and control to coaching, to empowerment.
And the sources are huge on this.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders have to cultivate psychological safety.
That's a term we hear a lot now. What does it mean in this context?
Well, a leader who is secure in their own identity can afford to be vulnerable. That's the key.
So they have to model it.
They have to. By admitting their own mistakes publicly, by not being defensive, by actually asking for people to critique their strategy.
And when you show that mistakes are for learning, not for getting fired.
You unlock everything. Innovation speeds up. People aren't afraid to bring you their half-baked ideas that might just be revolutionary.
But this path, this character-based relational leadership, it's not easy. It often invites more resistance, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, which is why the sources spend so much time on resilient faith in adversity. How do you hold on when the trials hit?
Because they will hit.
They're inevitable, and they're there to test and refine that character capital we talked about. Look at someone like Joseph. Betrayed, sold, imprisoned.
But he maintained his integrity through all of it.
And his story is a masterclass in what you might call cognitive flexibility. He kept reframing his awful circumstances as steps toward a bigger purpose he couldn't see yet.
You also mentioned Job as an example. Everything was stripped away from him.
Everything. But his ultimate faithfulness allowed him to hold on to his core self. This shows that resilience isn't passive. It requires deliberate maintenance.
And it requires that purpose anchoring.
The deep belief that there is an enduring purpose at work no matter what's happening on the surface. And practically, the sources recommend building some protective structures.
Okay, so what are the key practical steps for building that resilience right now?
They focus on daily habits. First, daily rhythms of surrender,
Meaning what?
meaning non-negotiable time to seek guidance, to recalibrate, to admit you're dependent on something bigger than your own talent. It's the antidote to ego.
Okay, what's the second?
Anchoring identity in scripture,
Yeah.
and not just reading it. Meditating on passages that constantly reset your self-perception back to your inherent worth, not what people are saying about you.
It's an integrity check.
A constant one. And finally, transformation is not a solo sport. You need accountability partners.
People who have permission to call you out.
Yes. Trusted peers or mentors who can give you candid, even painful feedback. That structure keeps your private intentions and your public actions aligned, and that is the definition of integrity.
So we've covered identity, character, vision, and influence. What does this all mean for the long game, for your legacy?
This is the ultimate measure. The sources call it legacy as the true measure.
And this is where that multiplication factor becomes the key metric.
Exactly. They quote this foundational principle from 2 Timothy that says success is measured by the multiplication of leadership,
So entrusting your wisdom and skills to reliable people.
who will also be qualified to teach others. You aren't measured by your own title. You're measured by the vitality of the leaders you've intentionally raised up.
That completely shifts leadership from a personal career path to a systemic duty to develop talent.
It does. The example of Hudson Taylor and the China Inland Mission is perfect. His goal wasn't his own fame.
It was equipping a generation of indigenous leaders.
His legacy wasn't about the numbers he posted. It was the systems and the character of the leaders he empowered to carry on without him. Real influence outlives you.
So legacy demands generational thinking.
Every single decision has to be weighed against that. Does this benefit the next generation of leaders? Does it prioritize eternal values over trendy metrics?
And that brings us right back around to the inside-out approach. The ultimate challenge, then, is to stop chasing external success
The titles, the applause, the immediate results.
and instead cultivate that deep internal transformation, letting a secure identity shape your influence and letting your character sustain your impact.
Transformation starts with that radical self-awareness, with humility. It thrives on faith and relational integrity, and it multiplies through others. The charge is to lead boldly, but always surrendered, to prioritize mentorship over ambition.
And here is the final provocative thought the sources leave us with for you to think about. True leadership is measured not by the weight of your title, but by the transformative influence you cultivate through relational integrity and servant-hearted service. Will your influence matter not just today, but for eternity?